Okay, buying real estate and holding it for the lifetime could be the best decision of your entire life. In this video, I'm gonna talk about, should I buy a single or multi-family home? All right, in this video, I'm gonna compare and contrast and give you the pros and the cons of me buying single family homes and my first multi-family home that I purchased in Colorado. All right, so I purchased my first rental property in 2007, and that was a total bust, man. I never ever made a single penny, not even the day I sold it in 2019. You know, they say real estate goes up. My mortgage was $750 a month, and I rented this thing out for like $900 a month, and something always broke, something was always damaged, always had to evict a tenant, you name it. Well, my second property, I had actually taken a little break from about 2007 to 2013. I was in the Army, went through basic training in AIT, and then deployed a couple times. And then the Army pulls me out of Afghanistan on my second deployment and says, hey, we're gonna send you to college to be an officer. Well, I had to really quickly get out of Afghanistan, go clear my house in Germany, and then go to be a college student now at Florida Tech in Melbourne, Florida. I'm about to live the life of my dreams as a college student, making my E5 salary as a sergeant. Well, I had to move in with this guy. I actually found him on Craigslist of all places. He was renting a room, and it was a super nice house, and he was always gone, always working. But there was one thing about this house that I hated, and he was never home. He never cleaned his cat's litter box. So I'm like feeding his cat, cleaning the litter box daily because it stunk in there. And guess where the litter box was? Right next to my room. Well, I was like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I can go buy my own house. I've already bought a rental. So I used my VA loan and I bought a house right next to the college. And I fixed this house up. I had to put carpet in it. I had to paint it. And I got some sweat equity in it. And I also hired the neighbor across the street to help me because he had a handyman service. And then we put new appliances. And I rented out each one of these rooms, and it made me a profit of about $110 a month. And I lived there for free just to live there. And I was building equity as the house appreciated, and I was paying down the mortgage as my mortgage paid down. And one really cool thing that no one talks about is I was getting a tax deduction. And you're probably thinking, well, what about multifamily? Talk about multifamily. I promise you, I'm getting there. So I'm getting a tax deduction of owning this rental. Now I have 2 rentals, mind you, and then I refinanced that loan after I kind of like stabilized that house. I'm making good income. I showed that to the mortgage broker, and then I pulled out $55,000 and bought the house down the street. So now I have 3 single family homes that we've turned into rentals. I now made friends with the guy across the street. Dennis is his name, and we're fixing up this next house in Palm Bay, Florida. Here it is, 2013. And then fast forward to 2015, I go to Colorado and I buy another house. And I had been mailing now. I'm mailing people on the high equity list. I'm mailing people, and what is high equity? Basically, it's people that have a property less than 50% loan to value. So if the guy owns $100,000 on the mortgage, that means the property is worth a little over 200. Or maybe he owns the property and it's worth 100 and he only owes about $49,000 on the mortgage. So that means he's a high equity list. So he owes less than 50 cents loan to value. So I was mailing these people, I should say, and I was mailing them a postcard, and I'm going to give you that postcard today for free as my free gift. But I started mailing out this postcard, and ultimately somebody called me with a triplex for sale. Like, he was like, I want to get rid of this. I'm 80 something years old. And that is my first shot, my first whack at multifamily. And I really wish, knowing what I know now, I would have started with the multifamily. I could have taken my VA loan and purchased a 4-plex in Melbourne, Florida, where I was going to college, and I would have been able to 4X what I did in Melbourne with that one house. I could have taken a 4-plex, lived in one of the units, and then rented out all the rooms in the other to college students. Ultimately, I had a guy that was mining Bitcoin in 2013, and guess what he wanted to pay as his rent in 2013? It was Bitcoin, and I was too dumb to take it. Well, I did some math like just a few months ago just to make myself cry. I would have been worth about $27 million just from that one house. Now, this is not a story about Bitcoin or if crypto is better than real estate. I actually have another video about that on this channel. So I hope you subscribe because I talk about cryptocurrency as well. I am mining Bitcoin myself these days, but we're here talking about should I buy a single family or multifamily. So let's get into some pros and some cons. You know, my wife doesn't want to live in a multifamily house. So it's really good for that investor just starting out, or that single investor. I was single in 2013. I didn't have kids in 2013. Good luck talking my wife into allowing me to move me and our kids into a fourplex that I can buy with my VA loan. Guys, if you're in the military or if you're a veteran, go out and buy a fourplex with your VA loan. You might have to move into it for about 6 months. And I mean, I don't ever recommend anybody commit mortgage fraud. Actually move into this thing. But that VA loan can get you started in your military investing career very quickly. All right, so let's get into talking about when we sell these single family home compared to the multifamily home. So that dump I bought in 2007, it really wasn't a dump. It was actually a really nice house. And it was my first house. And there's no amount of money. I would have done it a million times over the same exact way I did it with that 2007 house, even though I didn't make money, because one, it gave me tax write-offs for many, many years, and two, it gave me a solid foundation of education that I know what to do, what not to do. It really cut my teeth on the learning. But when I sold that house in 2019, like I mentioned a little earlier on this video, I sold it for the exact same price what I bought it for in 2007. Now, granted, if I would have just waited a few more years, I would have done a whole lot better, because the market finally caught up to this little area. It was really in the path of the growth. It finally started accelerating a few years after I sold it in 2019, which is now 2022. It's doing pretty well out there. Now let's go to this triplex that I sold in 2021. This same triplex that I bought, I owed $116,000 on the mortgage, $116,000. And I hope you can do this math for me. I'm not gonna do it right here because I don't have a calculator in front of me, but I sold it for $479,000. So $479,000, let's just do quick math, minus a $100,000 mortgage, I made about $300,000 on this particular property. Well, it's actually more than that. But I also netted about $2,000 a month for the entire time I owned it, because I rented them out to, one was a doctor, another was a family, and the third was a veteran living in the back unit. I call it a triplex. It was really a duplex with a cottage in the back. So 3 units on one very small parcel of land. So that's just a compare and contrast of selling a single family residence compared to that multi-family residence that was bringing in a ton of cash flow. Now, I look at it now to this day, I wish I wouldn't have sold it, because that same exact address, and I'll give you the address, is it's 739 East High Street in Colorado Springs, Colorado, 80903. If you look at the Zestimate, it's about $100,000 more than what I actually sold it for a year ago. So it's just outstanding and baffling what multifamily is going for right now. It's an absolute high demand, because we're in a housing shortage right now. People are looking for more houses, landlords are looking for more multifamily, and people are needing places to put their money. All right, another comparison to single family housing rather than multifamily housing. It's way easier to scale a multifamily housing. So let's just focus on a fourplex compared to a single family residence. Let's just say you're gonna move into that fourplex. So you're gonna live in one unit and rent out the other 3. Well, potentially you could ultimately pay your mortgage with those other 3 units. Now, a single family home, you could do the same thing if you had 4 bedrooms. You can rent out 3 of them, kind of like I did in college, and live in one for free. But it's way nicer to have a wall that's maybe a concrete block wall rather than sharing a thin wall that's maybe drywall. And a lot of times in single family homes, the air conditioner vents can carry sound over. It's way quieter in a multifamily, and there's way more security that way. And then also think about the scaling proportion of it. Now, hey, I'm gonna move out of this fourplex and I'm gonna buy the single family residence down the street. Ultimately, a property manager can manage 4 units on one piece of land. It's way easier for management as well. You just wanna have like separate utilities and separate meters. That way you can bill or have your tenants pay for their utilities themselves. And one thing I highly recommend, whether it's single family or multifamily, always let your tenants pay their own utilities. They should be responsible for them, because ultimately I find when I'm paying for the light bill or I'm paying for the water bill, I'm probably gonna turn things off or use a little bit less than if somebody else is paying for it. If I have that mindset, or most people probably will have the same mindset. If someone else is paying for it, they'll use more. If they're paying for it, they'll be a little bit more cognizant of letting that water run or leaving those lights on while they go on vacation. All right, another thing when you're taking into account for multifamily, should I buy a multifamily or a single family residence? Oftentimes you can get the repairs and the renovations done a lot cheaper on a single family residence because a handyman or a lower grade licensed contractor can work on that compared to maybe a commercial like a fourplex or a fiveplex unit. Oftentimes it takes commercial licensing and sometimes architecture and engineer. So it's a lot more expensive to work on commercial just because of the sheer fact there's more people in more of a dense environment. So there's more risk than just a single family home that kind of sits on its own. So oftentimes it's a little bit more expensive to renovate a multifamily compared to a single family residence. All right, so I went ahead and sold that college house, made a pretty good penny on it, but not nearly as much as that first triplex. And then I used that money from the college house to get into a 19-unit apartment complex. And I want to tell you a little story about buying one of the biggest multifamilies I've bought yet so far. But before I do, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. And also, if you want to give me a little bit more of a tip, I hope you're enjoying this video, go ahead and hit the like button as well for me if you don't mind. All right, thanks so much for doing that, hitting that subscribe button and the like button. Let me talk to you about this 19-unit apartment complex that we purchased. And we ultimately found the seller originally with this awesome postcard that I'm about to give you for free, but then we had to do a follow-up cold call and we ultimately got him on the phone finally. This guy is managing his 19-unit apartment complex from another state. Believe it or not, the apartment complex was in Colorado Springs and he's managing it from Tennessee. Imagine how well the management was doing on this property. It was in shambles. We ended up getting it for about 50 cents on the dollar. I raised some funds by bringing in a very smart real estate investors slash realtor, and he helped me raise the funds, and then we used our hard money lender to buy this multifamily property. But one of the things we found out is what I already had mentioned to you, it takes architecture designs and engineer drawings to start working on these properties, and you need a commercial license to do it legally. So I just want you to know these things before you get into it. Like, have these things lined up before you pull the trigger on the property, because I mentioned hard money loan. We're sitting there paying a $6,000 a month mortgage while nothing is happening on this property. That is not a good sign to your other partner investors or your lenders helping you do the business. So guys, if you're interested in doing more of these deals or finding out how to do deals with me and my team, hit me up on Instagram, Brent L. Bowers. You can also comment below here. But as promised, that free gift that I offered you, head on over to thelandsharks.com/postcard, and that is the exact postcard that I've used to bring in these deals, as well as millions and millions of dollars worth of real estate. I hope you enjoy it, and it's yours for free today. I'm gonna ask you for your name and your email, and then we will email you that postcard for free, and talk to you later.